The disease that we see that we call cancer today, it's not what it was. It's something different. It's affecting lives in a way it shouldn't.
Someone is looking to eradicate cancer and they're not doing conventional therapy. We would go for a 30-day fast. It's a really profound method of detoxification, and detox is maximized between days 4 and 7 of a fast. So the body starts preferentially targeting cancer, basically any diseased tissue, to use it as fuel. It is the body's natural way to flip the script on cancer.
Welcome to Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear, where integrative oncology meets holistic healing. This podcast is your home for the latest in innovation, exploration, and elevation in all areas of integrative oncology, medicine, health, wellness, and beyond. Join me and a host of other innovators as we go from practicing to prescribing. Your daily dose of wellness begins now.
Welcome to another Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast. I'm super excited to bring our next guest to you. And let me remind you, we are at the Metabolic Health Day Conference. There are individual experts in a wide variety of areas that are coming together through this network that Nation Winners has put together at this Metabolic Health Day Conference. It's not one day, it's multiple days. And it's new ideas, new concepts that are going to be coming out of collaboration of these innovators coming together. And I have one such innovator here, and I'm super excited to bring her on the show because she's going to bring a very unique story, a very unique journey you're going to want to hear. I want to hear. Let me go through her bio with you. She's a former board-certified radiation oncologist. She now teaches integrative oncology. She lives outside of Portland, Oregon. And you got your MD from Duke University, is that correct? And you also got your radiation oncology through Duke University. So what do they call Duke basketball fans? What are they?
Well, Blue Devils.
Blue Devils, yeah. But they have a name for the fans, don't they?
Oh, the Cameron Crazy.
There you go. Yeah. Are you a Cameron Crazy?
I was a Cameron Crazy.
Okay. Because I'm a University of Tennessee ball fan. And in 2 weeks, it's a preseason game, but Tennessee and Duke basketball, they're going to play together. And it's to give funds to needy organizations. But I'm super excited to see because Duke is a powerhouse in basketball. Just a little sidestep. Sorry, I love sports because I think it presents good metaphors for life.
Absolutely.
And it's really, really good. So it'll be good to watch that, and I'll think of you as we watch that. So if Duke wins, hats off. But she brings this unique story of coming from the conventional world, not just coming from the conventional world, but radiation oncology. I mean, that's one of the pillars of conventional oncology, Katie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
I want to structure, as I told you this beforehand, in 3 parts. And the very first part, I think, tells us why you're here. There's a story behind all of us, why we deviate from the path we thought we were on. And we end up at a place like this, a community like this, friends like this, colleagues like this. How did you come here?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a radiation oncologist by training. I did med school, internship, and residency all at Duke University. And then I practiced for 20 years as a radiation oncologist, board certified, specializing in breast and gynecologic cancers. And I also was in healthcare leadership. So I was interested in designing better cancer care from end to end, from screening and prevention through diagnostics, treatment, end-of-life care, or survivorship. And so I was deep in the conventional world and really thriving at what I was doing. But in 2019, I started to feel like something was off. And I heard a parable at a meditation retreat, and I think this was around 2018, that caught my attention. And the parable goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was a village perched alongside a river. And one day, the villagers noticed a body floating in the river. Someone was drowning. So they rushed out, someone swam out and rescued the person and brought them onto dry land. And then the next day, there were 2 people drowning in the river. And the villagers sent 2 people out, got them out of the water, and saved them. And then every day, the number of people in the water were drowning doubled. So the next day there were 4, and then 8, and then 16, and so on and so on. And so the villagers organized themselves and became very adept at rescuing people off the river, and they created elaborate rescue systems and teams. And the village elders were praising the villagers for the wonderful work that they were doing on the river. And I heard this story, and I was at a meditation retreat with one of my colleagues who was a GYN oncologist. And I turned to her and I said, this is us in Western medicine. We are glorified rescue workers on the river. And what the heck is going on upstream? Because we were seeing younger and younger people entering our offices. We were dealing with sicker and sicker patients. The numbers just seemed to be increasing, and no one was talking about it. And I was in leadership looking at this problem and thinking, something is wrong here. But when you're so deep in the system, you don't really know what the problem is. That story caught my attention. And after that, in 2019, I started having these thoughts that I was like not supposed to be practicing radiation oncology, which made no sense because I had spent my whole life up until 32. I didn't have my first job until I was 32 because my training took that long. And so when I was having these conversations with my husband, I was like, I don't know why I'm getting this message that I'm not supposed to practice radiation oncology. And I had no idea what it meant. And my husband at the time was like, maybe it's that you're not going to be happy if you're not happy having everything someone else would want. I had a successful career. It was lucrative. I was doing meaningful work, taking care of people with cancer. My patients loved me. My colleagues loved me. And he was like, well, maybe if you're not happy now, you're not going to be happy with anything. And so for a while, I internalized, by the way, I know that's not right now, but I internalized that for a while and was like, okay, maybe this is like some midlife crisis for me, and maybe I'm just need to sort through this. And then what happened in 2020, I had just been nominated to become the national medical director for all of cancer care for one of the largest health organizations in the US, managing prevention, screening, end-to-end cancer care for 12 million Americans. So it was a really big job. I had spent like 5 months interviewing for this position, and it came down to me and one other woman. And ultimately, it was given to this other woman. And I knew when that happened, I was like, I meant to build something, but I don't think it's in the system. That's what my feeling was. And what happened was the very next week, I had probably the most profound experience of my life, which is called a shared death experience. And many people have heard of a near-death experience, when someone who basically dies or their heart stops and then they have this metaphysical experience of experiencing heaven or whatever's outside the veil, the love and the light and all of that. Well, there's a phenomenon that can happen to bystanders who are at the scene when someone else transitions, like healthcare workers. And I didn't know about this phenomenon until after it had happened to me. But in the fall of 2020, like right after I had gone through that interview process, not gotten that position, I had a shared death experience where I crossed outside of what we would call this reality and was engulfed in the love and the light and the sun. It was like basically I was in the sun. And I came back from that experience different. And different in the way that suddenly I could sense truth almost better. It was almost like I was an antenna and my antenna was tuned. And all of a sudden I saw that all of those messages that I had been receiving over the past year were correct, that I actually wasn't supposed to be in Western medicine anymore, and then I needed to leave. But the kicker was that I didn't know what I was supposed to do. The only thing that I could see was what I needed to let go. And that was huge because my husband wasn't supportive. He was scared. He didn't understand this. He was like, how do you just like leave and not have a plan? But I knew that I had to get out of the system to see what the answer was, where I was supposed to go. And so in 2022, about a year and a half after this event happened, I left Western medicine and exited out of the system to figure out like what is real healing and what am I supposed to be doing.
You know, first of all, it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful experience. And it's one that's been repeated many times where doctors love what they do. I was a pelvic floor surgeon. And then there just is this nagging sensation. And I was talking to somebody earlier. I said, you know, what we were taught to do, I helped some people, but I discovered I couldn't help all. And the system I was in was not a system that helped all. And I had to figure out, where do I find the system that helps all? But the story, as touching as that is, I don't think it tells the listener, the viewer, how hard it is to step out of the system. As a medically trained, board-certified doctor, but let me add a qualifier to that, a radiation oncologist. How hard was that? I mean, was that something that clearly your husband had concerns about, issues about? Were your colleagues like, congratulations, Katie, you're enlightened, that's fantastic? I know it wasn't. That's not being rhetorical. But I mean, what'd you feel?
It was so hard because I thought that maybe there was something wrong with me, you know, and the one thing that really guided me is because as an oncologist, I've spent so much time around people who are dying and facing the end of their life. And I do know that what people say at the end of their life is that they wish they had the courage to live a life that was authentic to them. That is the number one regret that I heard. In my practice, I have this like real comfort around death and dying. And so a lot of my practice was actually palliative. And because I had so many of those conversations, that I knew no matter how hard it was, that I was not going to get to the end of my life and look back and say, I didn't do it because my husband didn't want me to leave. I knew that when I left this body, when I left this earthly realm, that I was going to be responsible to have lived according to what I knew was true. Right. And I knew that I had to walk through that. And it was hard, and like every day, because I actually didn't tell my colleagues why. I was just like, I'm leaving. And I would cry every day for 6 months during that period, driving to work, leaving work, because I didn't know why. All I knew was that I had to go. But it took me leaving and getting outside the system to realize why I had to do that. And walking through that was the hardest thing that I've ever done, but also the most rewarding, because now I'm at this conference with all my people, right? It's like I couldn't have found my people, Naisha, all the wonderful people that she brings together, if I hadn't made that scary step to walk away.
Yeah. And I apologize, I did not want to see you cry, but the emotion comes out because I think it's safe to say you loved being a medical doctor, radiation oncologist, and just like I loved being, the doctor that I was, but we were intended for something bigger. Yeah. And the fact that you answered the call, Katie, I think says a lot about you. Yeah, live with no regrets. I've told my kids all their life, dream big. Dream big. Because anything's possible. The only thing that limits us in that possibility is us. And so what you've done is you've accepted that same philosophy, dream big, without determination of the outcome. And that takes great courage. And so I want to congratulate you, not because of the sacrifices you made, but because I think the rewards that you'll receive. Because patients are already there. Patients are driving this change. Mm. As I say all the time, you're the force vector of change. And what you can see is, I would say, most of the doctors that change, that step out of the conventional arena into a more integrative mode, it's the patients that push them.
Yeah.
It's the patients that challenge them. It's the patients that question them. What I tell some of my dearest patients is, one of my dearest patient, she lived all prognosis with breast cancer, was given about 6 to 9 months to live. She lived a little bit over 5 years. We became dear friends over that time, her husband and I, and her husband called me out of the blue a couple weeks ago. And I told him, I said, his name's Garland. I said, Garland? I said, thank you. He said, well, I'm your friend. I said, no. I said, you made me a better doctor. And that's really, I think, what you're describing yourself there is you're in that mode. So welcome. I'd say welcome. We're glad to have you. Now, when you stepped away, did you have everything planned out? Did you have all things set? You had another job ready to pivot in, ready to go, rock and roll. Did you have all that set?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, that was the big rub with my husband, because he was like, well, if you have a plan, that's fine. But he's like, this leap into the unknown, because I was like, there's something making me mistrust the system, and I can't tell you what it is. So I'm not going to jump into another training or into an administrative role, because I think there's something wrong. And that required me to let go and have some time to step away. And, I'm not sure who said this originally, but I find that it speaks perfectly to the experience that I have, that you can't read the label on the outside of a bottle when you're inside the bottle. And when I was in the bottle of Western medicine, I couldn't read the label on the outside of the bottle of what was this all about. And it took me leaving and spending time outside of the system to really see it for what it was. And so for me, I had to take that time to step away and to really reflect, to see, okay, why is it that I need to leave this? What is not right here? And what is true healing?
Well, that's a good question. What is true healing? So from that standpoint, again, that Katie, that took tremendous courage. And the listeners and viewers and those on social media, I just gotten to know Katie. I thought I'd met you last year, but she corrected me and said, no, we hadn't met yet. So pleasure meeting you. Your story's already connecting with my heart. What she just described there is incredible courage. So how did you end up in this community? Because obviously there was some soul searching. There was, okay, let me step outside of the bottle. How did that process evolve? And then how have you ended up here in Tucson in October of 2025 at the Metabolic Health Day Conference?
Sure. So when I made the decision to leave Western medicine and start to explore what is true healing, I really started to explore what makes us healthy, because everything that I'd been taught a lot about pathophysiology, what goes wrong in the body, and then how to use medication, or in my case, radiation, to fix that problem. But I realized that I had never been taught what an optimally healthy human looks like. And so that's where I started, was really looking at what does optimal health look like, and studying that, and then realizing that healing is just bringing wholeness back to the body, right? So I knew that whatever I was going to do needed to be holistic, and it needed to be really looking at the whole person rather than just this specialized approach to, just killing cancer, or killing cancer within specific organs. I mean, it gets so specialized in conventional oncology. And so as I started to explore that, I took little over a year off, and that was actually at the direction of my mentor. I was thinking I'll take 3 months off and then I'll do something to make money, because I hadn't really planned, now I had gone from making a lot of money to now making, no money and giving away half my assets because I went through divorce. So I was thinking, okay, I need to get out there and make money. And he was like, no, he's like, you can't give anyone what you don't have. And people who need to heal need peace. They need, calmness inside. You need to find that peace inside yourself first, before you can go out and do that. So I spent 2022 and the latter half of 2022 and 2023, really working on myself and studying all these different aspects of healing. And then in October of 2023, so just 2 years ago, I launched my integrative practice and focused really on emotional healing, nutrition and supplementation and the terrain. You know, I didn't have that language, but that's what I was starting to do. Also looking at circadian biology, getting people back in touch with nature, you know, mindset, specifically the conscious, subconscious mind, working on the subconscious mind, and then spiritual alignment, you know, that authentic self, like that question that I had about living my authentic life is really important for healing. So I was working on those things with my clients, and what happened was that my mentor brought up water fasting. And he said, you know, that if you fast someone for 9 days, you could start to have tumors shrink. And I was like, that sounds crazy, like 9 days, just water. And then he said, and if they do 30 days, you could like get rid of, you know, metastatic disease. And literally this all just sounded so crazy in my mind that I was like, I didn't know about water fasting centers that did this. And so my mind was kind of blown and I was really afraid of it. It sounded really crazy to me. But I had a client who had been on his wait list. So my mentor, now his list is closed and he doesn't see clients, but he had a 4-year-long wait list. And someone on his list with breast cancer had developed brain metastases, and she requested to be seen sooner. And his wife said, no, but you should go see Dr. Katie. So she came to me and he was suggesting a water fast. And so she was like, yeah, game on, let's do it. And I was terrified, but I was like, okay, let's do it. And she had metastatic breast cancer that had spread to her brain. She had a 2-centimeter tumor in her brain. And we did a 17-day water fast. We didn't do 30 days because she had a trip plan and some other things. So we did 17 days. And she also had radiosurgery. So radiosurgery is very focused, high-dose radiation into the brain. And usually on the scans after someone's had radiosurgery is like 3 months later, the tumor actually looks a little bit bigger, but maybe the contrast enhancement is slightly less. And then over time it starts to shrink, but you always see something there. Like you see the tumor or the remnants of the tumor, and you also see radiation necrosis, which is damage from the radiation around the tumor.
And that necrosis can linger, can it not?
Yeah, and the necrosis can actually be a big problem.
Yes, it can.
Yes. So she had the radiosurgery, then we did a 17-day water fast, and then 3 months later, she went to her neurosurgeon, and she calls me right after the visit, and she said, the neurosurgeon's totally confused. And she's like, he said that the tumor's gone. And she was confused because she's like, well, isn't that what you expect? And he was like, no, I didn't expect this. And it wasn't until I saw the images myself that I realized this is absolutely, I've never seen anything like this. And basically, she went from having a 2-centimeter tumor in her brain to a completely pristine brain, looking as if she had never had radiation, there was never a tumor there, and she just had her repeat MRI 2.5 years out after the her first post-treatment scan, and it's still clear.
Well, let's put that in context, because you had been doing just this for 20 plus years?
Yes.
Had you ever seen that?
Never.
Never. And this one time, this variable was a 17-day water fast.
Yeah. And we did emotional work and subconscious work while she was fasting as well, but yes.
So again, you know, calling, personal experience, basically at this point, your passion was already stirred.
Yeah.
And your purpose was already emotion. But it seems like this really triggered that final step.
Yeah. Well, it took me a little time. Because,
oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, because I was scared of it. I did it for like 17 days. I didn't sleep because I was like, oh my gosh, is this safe? And so it took me time to warm up to it, even though I knew it was really effective. And then, so I then had a second client, and this person also came from him, and he suggested the water fast, and she did a 14-day water fast for breast cancer. The surgeon had recommended a mastectomy. She asked if she could have 3 months to work on. We did all the stuff, changed her diet, did a 14-day water fast, emotions, subconscious, all that. And then when she went back to have her mammogram before her mastectomy, it was all gone. So that was my second client. And now I'm starting to pay attention. I'm like, okay, this scares me, but also I've never seen this, right? So then at that point, what I started looking to is there's other people who are doing water fasting. Now I realized, okay, there's like these centers that do water fasting. So what I started doing was sending clients there, because I'm like, this is not like anything that I had been trained in. Right. And I was seeing the effects. And I also had a full busy practice. I was totally booked at this point. And so I started sending people to the centers. And then I realized the refeeding was not done in a metabolically appropriate way. And for cancer, that's really important. Mm-hmm. So they were being refed with fruit juices and a lot of vegetables that were high in lectins and high in oxalates, and then rice and beans, just things that I was like, oh my goodness, no, you can't after they've just fasted. Like now we're basically giving all of the things that we know are inflammatory in their body and also feeding glucose, right? Mm-hmm. And then there wasn't real clear introduction of foods that are going to support the microbiome. And we've just done a powerful clearing of the microbiomes. After I realized that the refeeding was after realizing that sending people out to these other fasting centers was not appropriate for what my clients needed with cancer. And these centers are not, a lot of them have cancer as a contraindication. They don't want to fast people with cancer. So my particular lens was I was like, okay, I have to do this then, because there's nobody who's refeeding in this way that I knew of. And so that's when in February of 2025, so just this year, like 9 months ago, I started hosting a group fast on my lunch hour. It was remote supervision, so people would be wherever they are around the world. And we would do a group, and I would check in with their vitals and make sure that everything is safe. And so that's when I really started doing fasting, but it was literally just in my lunch hour. And then what I've found is that it is the most profound tool that I was using in my whole practice. And so this summer, I basically shifted out of my integrative practice, and now I'm just focused on water fasting because the results have been incredible.
So you've actually made several big pivots.
Yeah.
One was a choice, one was not a choice, and then a third was a choice.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to fasting, there's because you're here to talk about prolonged fasting.
Correct.
And we'll jump right in that in just a moment, because the way I like to bridge for people is understand that when we treat cancer, some people are ready to go all in. They're ready to go fully outside of the standard of care. They're ready to step into the full integrative, natural, holistic component, which, by the way, that word integrative means to make whole.
Yeah.
So you're holding true to what that word means. But you can step in and add fasting to conventional therapies, immunotherapy, chemotherapy, radiation, and it's going to help that. Research has shown that UCLA showed that, I think that was the study with radiation with UCLA, maybe it was a chemotherapy, I think it was radiation. But it's been shown with immunotherapy as well. But you're taking this a whole nother level. You're just saying, no, water fasting only, because are you doing anything else there?
No, now my practice is just focused on prolonged water fasting.
Okay, so tell the listeners and viewers, what does that mean? What does that look like? Now, that type of therapy needs to be under the guidance of a doctor, because it is hard on the body, kidneys, etc. So, educate the public about that, because that is a significant therapy.
Sure. So, prolonged water fasting is the voluntary abstinence of all food and drinking water only for over 5 days, up to 30 to 40 days. And so in my practice, most people with cancer, if someone is looking to eradicate cancer and they're not doing conventional therapy, that kind of thing, we would go for a 30-day fast. But of course, listening to their body. So based on their weight, we've got lower limits of what we, will take them down in terms of the weight, and we're watching their vitals and then their labs. So we just literally can set the goal for 30 days, and then we'll go as long as it's safe for the body and it feels right for that person. But then I have people who maybe want to just detoxify after conventional therapy. And for them, I will do a shorter fast, like 14 days, because once you get past the first 3 days of fasting, which is, I think a lot of people are familiar with intermittent fasting, 24 to 36 hour fasting, 3-day fast, right? But once you get past the third day and someone is in ketosis, like therapeutic levels of ketosis, meaning a ketones above 4, glucose usually below 65, GKI less than 2, what happens is the body starts to do really powerful detox because you're dumping the toxins in the fat. And basically those toxins then can be flushed out of your system through the kidneys, through the liver, through the lymphatics. And it's a really profound method of detoxification. And detox is maximized between days 4 and 7 of a fast. And then the beautiful thing for cancer is that once you hit 7 days, the body recognizes, okay, we don't have any food coming in. We have to prioritize what tissue we're going to use for fuel, right? And the body is not going to go after the brain. It's not going to go after the heart. It's not going to go after the kidneys and liver because it knows those are vital organs. So the body starts preferentially targeting diseased tissue, foreign proteins, infectious, bacteria, virus, cancer, basically any diseased tissue to use it as fuel. And so the beautiful thing about this is that it is the body's natural way to flip the script on cancer, right? We think of cancer as almost like a parasite that is taking the glucose for itself at the expense of the human that it's growing in. And when you get past this day 7 of fasting, this magical turning point where all of a sudden your body is now doing exactly the same thing that the cancer was doing to it, but now it's using the cancer as its fuel source. And that's how, with my first client, she had this tumor just disappear because the body used it for its fuel.
Yeah, the body said, you're not necessary to our sustainability, and so I'm going to use you as a source and clear you up. There's a recent study, you probably read it, 72 hours, basically regenerating the immune system.
Yeah.
And obviously that plays a role in this capacity for that. You talked about true healing. That's really true healing with a monotherapy.
Yeah.
And I always tell patients, the magic bullet doesn't exist in causation or treatment, but I've seen prolonged water fasting help patients with widely metastatic disease. Now, what I always get concerned about is under the guidance of improper supervision. And this, no longer we have to deal with Dr. Google, but Dr. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And so what happens is everybody thinks fasting is without problems, without issues. Could you touch and speak into that, some of the issues that people need to be aware of and why they need to follow a doctor that's knowledgeable in this area?
Sure. So prolonged fasting really should be done under the direction and supervision of a trained professional because there are a lot of things at play and little variations in how much water you drink, how fast you drink your water, whether you put electrolytes, whether you do minerals. All of those can shift your electrolytes into ways that can be really problematic. You can drop your electrolytes that can risk arrhythmias with the heart. And, people, and this is actually a common thing that I have, I have a podcast and on YouTube and people see the video and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm on day 10, tell me what to do. And it's like, no, this is not something that you should start on your own. Up to 5 days, people can do, if they're experienced in fasting and they've done a 3-day fast safely, they maybe can go out to 5 days. But the real risk actually when you go beyond 5 days of fasting is the refeeding. It's actually, the refeeding is more dangerous than the fast. Our bodies are designed to fast. So our bodies are designed to do this. We used to be in touch with this, right? And Hippocrates, the, founding father of medicine, used prolonged fasting for healing, but we've lost touch with that. But the thing is that it's when you reintroduce food where people really get into trouble. And actually, David Blaine, the magician, did a 40-day water fast and ended up having catastrophic refeeding and ended up dying from the refeeding process because he didn't know the right foods to eat. And he made it through the whole 40 days. And this is the risk with refeeding, is that if you eat the wrong foods, if you eat too much food, if you don't do this in a very prescribed way, then you can basically have catastrophic shifts in electrolytes that can lead to arrhythmias, coma, stroke, But if it's done correctly, you don't have those problems. Like, so True North is probably the biggest center with 25,000 patients that they have fasted with no deaths. That this is safe if it's done. But the interesting thing for me, what I had to learn was, how do I safely refeed people in a different way than these centers are doing that are doing plant-based and fruit-based diets? And so for me, that was a lot of the learning initially, was like, okay, what does a proper refeeding program look like in a metabolically correct way? And you have to be careful with introducing fats after a fast, because your gallbladder's been offline, and then you haven't been secreting insulin for maybe 30 days if someone's done a 30-day fast. So actually, any carbohydrates that come into the system immediately raise your blood glucose quite high, because your pancreas hasn't been secreting insulin.
It's like, I'm no longer needed right now, so I'm just going to chill.
Exactly. So there's just all these factors that I think people get really excited and then they just want to do it. But it's definitely something that should be under the guidance. And the other thing is that, if you don't rest when you do a water fast, you're just stressing your body. In order for a water fast to be healing, someone needs to stop working. They need to rest. They need to be really using that energy to go inside and have the body healing itself.
Wow. So, well, thank you for speaking truth to that, because somebody with your skills, somebody with your experience and knowledge can bring a very effective therapy that can be very problematic if not done correctly. Correct. Because one of the things we're seeing, and you're aware of this, Kitty, as you mentioned that with YouTube, is a lot of influencers that become medical doctors, it seems, and they have a lot of people that follow them, and we have to speak truth into that space. So thank you for doing that. Well, the people, the viewers that aren't here at this wonderful gathering, this community, you're speaking on this topic. So is that what you're talking about? Is the prolonged fasting, your experience, et cetera?
So I'm talking specifically about the mental and emotional benefits of prolonged water fasting, because tomorrow's theme is mental health. And so Naisha wanted me to speak to the emotional and mental benefits associated with prolonged water fasting, which what's interesting is everybody comes to me because they want the autophagy, they want the body to use the tumor to make the tumor go away, which obviously I want that too. That's what most people come to me for. But what comes out of the fast is so much bigger than that. And also, not everyone's tumor goes away. I would say I've fasted about 55 people now over the past 9 months with cancer specifically. And I'd say about a third of the people have shrinkage of their tumor, and some of them completely go away. But about 70% of people have their tumors just stable with the fast.
Let's stop there for a moment, because that's important. In cancer, sometimes a progressive situation and that now turns stable is a good step.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes in the cancer arena, people, I want to go on.
Yeah.
I want to go. You treated Sally Sue and it went away.
Yeah.
Mine just stopped growing. That's a great first step.
Yeah.
You stop a progressive, basically immortality replicative state, and you've stopped it in its tracks. Now you can turn that tide big time. So I think that's a profound statement, and I wanted to stop there and let you know how important that is. Yes, we want regression. Yes, we want elimination, no evidence of disease, but I think that's a great first step. I imagine you probably thought about publishing that, or writing about it.
So now I'm starting to really collect data, because I want to publish this, because I'm the only person who's really fasting specifically for cancer, at least an oncologist doing this. And quickly I'm developing, quite a little series of patients. So I definitely want to publish my results. But one thing that's interesting is that, people who get to the end of their fast and are like, oh, it didn't work. It's like, it hasn't shrunk, it hasn't changed. But what's so fascinating for me is that a lot of what's happening is that we've reset the mitochondria. We've gotten rid of the diseased mitochondria. We've bolstered the energy production from the mitochondria that people have left. And actually, if you think about cancer as a mitochondrial problem, by improving that, what I see is that after people finish the fast, then they might have shrinkage of the tumor, and they continue to have benefits because we're supporting the human being to heal the problem that is the core of it, which is the mitochondria. So it's the big letdown where people are like, oh, the tumor didn't shrink, and then watching how that shifts over time. But what's interesting is that even if the tumor doesn't go away, these people are changed, forever changed. And the biggest problems that I've always seen in the cancer space is that people are overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. They've got brain fog. They can't make decisions. They are afraid. They don't have a level of peace, which peace is required for healing. They're disconnected from themselves. They feel like they're just being thrown around, do this, do that. And they've lost connection with who they are. And what happens in the fast is that people find peace. Fear, if it comes up, it's like they can see it now. It's not overtaken them. They have clarity. I mean, this is the most common thing that I hear from people is that I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do before the fast. And now, whatever I have to do after this, I know I have clarity about what's important to me, and the answer will be clear when I face it. People just find themselves through this process. They become very clear mentally. There's a lot of emotional detox that happens. So with my fasters, I have different coaches that are coming in to work with them. So emotional healing, subconscious strategies to help with programming the subconscious mind, conscious mindset strategies. I have a chef and nutritionist who come and teach them. So I've got this whole team that's working with them on these different areas, but people come out it's a regular thing for me to have someone crying in the call and just saying, this has changed my life. I will never be the same in the best way possible. I feel like I can trust my body again. I know my body is designed to heal. Because when you go 30 days without food and you see the beautiful things that's happening in your body, they're forever changed by that. And that is huge, to have trust in the body again, and then to find peace, and then to have clarity about whatever decisions you're going to make. These are people who I would say, I fight against this all the time, is people want me to eradicate cancer or help them eradicate cancer. But just from the time that I've spent around people facing their own mortality, I know that healing ourselves on a deep level and coming back into connection with ourselves and our authenticity, who we are authentically, is the most important thing when they leave this body. And so for me, that deep healing is more important than eradicating cancer. And what I'm seeing in the water fast is that sometimes we get both, actually, where the tumor goes away, but I'm almost always getting this healing, bringing wholeness back to the person. And that to me is why I've just gone all in. I'm this is it. And this has been such a powerful experience for me to just witness the pure healing potential that our bodies have with nothing, just water.
Yeah, wow. Obviously, it's moved you, and it's fueling your passion and purpose to help others, and you're seeing that firsthand. But it's not just a regeneration and shrinkage or elimination of the tumor. It's not just a regeneration of mitochondria. It's not just a regeneration of the immune system. It's not just a resetting of that, but it's the mindset. I mean, and I look forward to hearing that talk tomorrow, because cancer is in part a mindset situation. Right. I mean, if they can break through the concept of fear and think possible, then it's just that crack into the door of what can happen. And then when you start to bring hope into it, then really that door starts to crack open and more doors start to open. So here, this is your first gathering with this community, this group. What's it been like?
It's been great. Yeah. It's amazing. Like the panel this morning where there were multiple MDs who were working outside the system doing this work. And then at the end of that panel, multiple MDs who are also, frustrated, leaving the system, all standing up. I'm like, oh, my people are here, So it's a beautiful community. And also just, we are living in unprecedented times of disease. And it's so beautiful to be with other people who don't care about the money, but care about actually making us well again. And that to me is everything.
Yeah, what I say is we're at the precipice of opportunity or catastrophe. And, you rightly spoke into that changing demographics of cancer. The disease that we see that we call cancer today, it's not what it was. It's something different, and it's affecting lives in a way it shouldn't. And thank you for stepping outside of that. That again shows great courage, Katie. Or did you come here expecting something out of this? What would you expect to come from this weekend, from this meeting? I know we're still in the midst of this weekend, but have you thought, wow, something's going to be born of this?
Oh yeah. I mean, just the opportunity to meet and connect with like-minded professionals. I mean, we've got really, really smart people in here who are doing incredible things, maybe in the system and out of the system. And that now the more we can collaborate, like I always believe that collaboration is the future of our success. And so for me, like just last night, the very first person I stood next to, I didn't know anyone here. I was just came to the reception, and the woman that I met, very first person, what does she do? She has fasting centers in Canada and Mexico. And she was like, no, I'm happy to share. So then having colleagues, because that's one of the things that I've felt so alone, right? Doing this because I didn't have any colleagues who were doing similar things. And so just by meeting her, I'm like, oh, now I have someone I can run things by, right? And I think, having these connections so that we can, all of this is organic, right? It's spreading because people really believe in what they're doing. And so when you can bring people who are passionate and smart and, gifted in what they do, and we can share, I think that that's what, the future of healing is.
And I think we're at that precipice, and it's the opportunity. I think coming out of this weekend, I think the only thing that isn't possible is what we take out of it, meaning we limit it. But if we don't limit what could come out of this, with all of the policymakers, the farmers, the advocates, the doctors that have been here, the doctors that are new, and all of that, I think we're going to change medicine. Now, we want it to change faster, and we want to continue to build those collaborations and those friendships. And I mean, that's what comes out of this, is friendships.
Yeah.
And it changes us forever. And again, the patients fuel that. And that mindset, I see that in you. I hear that in your story. I wanted to end with this. It's a great poem. But I think it kind of ties in a lot of your story. And it really touches me whenever I read it. It says, I've observed we are of two minds, the fear-based mind and the hopeful mind, so mindset. The fear-based mind says we can't, or we must not, or it's arrogant to lift up our heads. I embrace hope over fear. The hopeful mind says we will, and we can, and we must. Let's each forge ahead with courage together into all the great unknown. So you're talking about that mindset that is basically being born out of what most would look at as a metabolic reset, a fasting therapeutic. But it's going to take somebody from I can't, there's no way, to I will, I can, and I must. But that same basically story told in that poem, I see it in your journey. So I look forward to seeing where your can and your must takes you. in the future. Katie, thank you for joining us on this podcast. It has been a pleasure getting to know you. I look forward to working with you and referring patients to you if you're still open to patients, because I love fasting and I've always been worried about where I send patients too fast because of just the reason you highlighted. And people, I think, basically get a lackadaisical with it. And that just can't happen, especially when we're dealing with some of the patients with especially advanced cancer, where there's so many comorbidities and other issues involved. And I see a lot of people that are being fasted that shouldn't be, because there's too many contraindications for them to do that at that moment. But thank you for joining us. I look forward to partnering with you, walking alongside you, and seeing you grow, because it's very clear that you'll become a force in this movement. You'll become a force in this for patients as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Honor to have you. Well, it was another great podcast. Again, these individuals are changing me. As you've changed them, you've changed us all as patients. And it's been an honor to talk to Katie, and I look forward to talking to many other people that are being changed, that are changing the lives of others. This is the Prescribed by Dr. Nathan Goodyear podcast, and I will see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Prescribed Podcast. All references supporting this episode can be found on the prescribed.com website. That's pre-scribe.com. To get your next dose of medical innovation, make sure you subscribe to Prescribe. We'll see you for your next refill.